On July 22nd, Game Informer released their latest issue, cover story, Bloodlines 2. And to top that off, they released their podcast, their Game Informer show, on the 28th on YouTube. Charles Hart pinned the article, and he and Alex Van Aken traveled to Brighton, England, to visit the Chinese Room's studios. There, they met with game director Alex Skidmore, narrative director Ian Thomas, as well as Jason Carl from White Wolf, who happens to be the brand manager. Looks like White Wolf might be looking to crank up that marketing machine. During the podcast, Van Aken and Hart were rather candid about their expectations for this game. They had none, but it seemed like a good cover story, something that might draw in some readers. And lo and behold, they were very surprised. They enjoyed the game, and they came away with nothing but positives. From the podcast, we learned that they don't have a clue about Vampire the Masquerade, and they weren't familiar with the original game other than they knew it was there. And for the article, they went through a bunch of the history of its development and the troubled development of Bloodlines 2. And while I certainly would have appreciated a little bit more about the gameplay that they did, as they said they played several hours, for anyone not familiar with Bloodlines and all of that tangled history, it was a good little introduction. The impression I got from their podcast was this wasn't typically their jam. They didn't play vampire games. They knew a couple of them that were out there, and they didn't seem to be overly story-oriented gamers. And in this case, I think that's a good thing, as they walked away loving the combat. Now, obviously, we at the Outpost love story, characters, dialogue, development, all of that wonderful stuff, but nobody wants sucky, boring, awkward combat. And these guys were stoked about it. They didn't complain about it being clunky or weird or awkward. Nope, it was great. And they loved the powers and the combinations you could make with those powers. They were also very impressed with that rooftop traversal, jumping, mid-air gliding, the speed with which you climb a ladder. Excellent news. If your focus isn't the story, but you love the combat and you can tell other folks that the combat is good, the traversal is good, walking around the world is good, then for those who are more narrative focused, knowing that the combat will be decent is always a plus. So what are some things we didn't know? Well, one of the biggest ones is how fire gets the name Fire. Apparently, as soon as you wake up out of torpor, you see a poster on the wall for a band named Fire, and you decide, hecky darn, I'm now that. Yep, just rolls off the tongue, and that's my new name. The Chinese Room did not offer an explanation as to why a new name was suddenly chosen, or if in fact we will learn the real name later on in the game. I do hope there's a narrative explanation for this, however. After choosing your ridiculous name, you get introduced to your head companion, Fabian. Now, as we had reported earlier, Fabian is changed from a newly minted thin blood to a 100-year-old detective. And in the article, the Chinese Room pointed out they wanted to make him different from Fire. Guess they could have named him Ice. So he became a much more humorous and lighthearted character. I wonder, does that mean that our character is just going to be all serious all the time, or do we get a few of those quips and fun one-liners? We also learned that Fabian has lost his memories. Fire apparently knows that Fire is Fire, an elder vampire. How much they remember about anything else, they didn't say. And one of our first missions is to help Fabian get his memories back. We also learned from the article that cell phones and surveillance cameras are taboo for the kindred. In Vampire the Masquerade lore, apparently most of the vampires in London were wiped out by hunters who used electronic devices against them. So don't expect Fire to be chatting on the old cell phone, though I wonder if we can use payphones. This is, of course, within the game world, a very convenient mechanic to give us a reason to run around instead of just calling people up. Some folks have erroneously reported that the Chinese Room was saying this game takes place over a 24-hour period. That is not correct. Likely stems from a meeting you initially have with a character named Benny, who is the current sheriff. He will give you 24 hours to get your caboose out of town. Skidmore said that depending on your clan and dialogue choices, this conversation can end very differently. He did not elaborate on what those differences would be. Now, something that I took to be a bit of a downer was a statement made by Alex Skidmore, saying that the NPCs around town that you can feed on are kind of jerks, and they made them that way so that you wouldn't feel particularly bad about feeding on them. I'd like to feel bad at least about some of them. Wouldn't it be great if someone happened to have the blood resonance you were looking for and they give you the point so you could go get that extra power from some other another clan, but they were just so darn nice, did you really want to drain them? Maybe some of them aren't all jerks. We also learned that all the hairstyles are available right from the get-go. You will, however, unlock outfits as you level up. They did not say how you went about changing your hairstyle, but we're all for character customization anytime. Finally, their impressions were that this game was very well done and very polished. It did not look like a game that had gone through development hell. Neither the article nor the podcast had negative things to say about this game. That's a pretty rare thing, especially going into it figuring it was meh. So what do you folks think? Read these articles? Got any impressions? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, if you like content like this, give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.